The government of Kenya is keen on the development of social economic infrastructure to support the realization of the Big Four agenda and Vision 2030. The ambitious infrastructure projects are aimed at opening up the country for business and bolster productivity, particularly in the agricultural, manufacturing and the service industry, as this would bolster employment opportunities. Part of these critical infrastructure projects include the ongoing 27-kilometer expressway linking Nairobi's Jomo Kenyatta International Airport and Nairobi's Westlands. Upon completion, the expressway will exponentially reduce travel times within Nairobi and thus help the country save man-hours, which is being lost in the traffic jams on a daily basis. The Lake Victoria Port Modernization Project to increase cargo handling capacity of the port and to increase Kenya's bilateral and multilateral trading within the region. The expansion of healthcare facilities to facilitate fruition of the country's universal healthcare coverage under the Big Four agenda. By speeding up movement of people and goods, the government is aiming to promote trading through reduction of travel times and costs. A very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for joining us. This is Diaspora Dispatches, where we get to look at the news making headlines across the continent of Africa. And today I shall draw us to a special focus on what is happening there in Ethiopia, specifically on the Tigray region there. My name is Miriam Ogutu. That among other news across the continent. And so I'll just start with the latest from Senegal. And Senegal will, on Thursday, that is today, mark a day of national mourning for victims of the recent violent protest that left at least 8 young people dead. The protest was sparked by the arrest of opposition leader Osman Sonko, accused of rape, and were the most serious sin in several years. In a statement on Wednesday night, President Macky Sall also announced that a health emergency declaration imposed over the coronavirus pandemic will be lifted on March 19th, a night the curfew enacted because of the pandemic has been blamed for stifling the informal economy. The protests were also fueled by economic inequalities and concerns over young people's standards of living. And then we go to Ethiopia, where a senior Ethiopian diplomat has resigned in protest over alleged atrocities being committed in the ongoing conflict in the northern Tigray region. He criticized Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed for leading the country down a dark path towards destruction and disintegration, adding that the government was lying where the whole world bears witness. Thousands of people were reported to have been killed and hundreds of thousands have fled their homes. Mr. Berhane said the involvement of Eritrean troops and forces from neighboring Amara region to commit atrocities and wanton destruction of Tigray had increased hatred between different communities in the country. Because Uganda kicked off a mass vaccination of COVID-19 on Wednesday after receiving 864,000 doses of Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine last week. Health Minister Jane Ruth Aceng was the first to receive a jab at the main hospital in the capital, Kampala. Priority has been given to health workers in the country, and many of them lined up at Mulago Referral Hospital in Kampala to receive it. Other groups scheduled to receive the vaccine are security personnel considered essential in supporting the COVID-19 response, teachers, adults age over 50 years, and people with underlying health conditions. The vaccination campaign will spread to health centers countrywide for the next 5 days. And then we go to Somalia, where Somalia's former President Ali Mahdi Mohammed died on Wednesday at a hospital in neighboring Kenya, aged 82. He rose to power in 1991 after he overthrew President Siad Barre and stayed in office until 2000. He was succeeded by Abdi Kasim Salad Hassan. President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo has said flags will fly at half-mast for 3 days in honor of the former president. A national funeral committee has also been appointed, Mr. Farmajo has said. And we go to the southern part of Africa, and also I think the central part of Africa. And the U.S. has designated rebel groups in Democratic Republic of Congo and Mozambique as foreign terrorist organizations. It said the groups Allied Democratic Forces, ADF, and Al-Ansar al-Sunna, locally known as Al-Shabaab in Mozambique, were affiliated to the global jihadist group Islamic State. The leaders have been named as specially designated global terrorists. They now face sanctions as a result of the designations. And still on Ethiopia, and the U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken has said the people of Tigray in northern Ethiopia are being subjected to what he called ethnic cleansing. Testifying before a congressional committee, he called on the Ethiopian government to stop this and stop abusing human rights in the region. Mr. Blinken said the Eritrean troops and a separatist Ethiopian militia must get out of Tigray. Earlier this month, he urged Addis Ababa to allow an international investigation into alleged atrocities in the region. The Ethiopian government has dismissed U.S. criticism, saying the Tigray war is an internal matter. And then we go to, I think, still in Ethiopia, and at least 32 people have been killed in a village in Ethiopia's Oromia region. Officials have said, some reports say they were shot in their homes. Others say they were taken from church and shot in a forest. Another 20 were kidnapped and later released. The local officials said the gunmen were members of the rebel Oromia Liberation Army. Most of the dead are said to be members of the Amhara ethnic group. Hundreds of thousands of Ethiopians have been displaced by ethnic violence since Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed came to power in 2018. And might I remind you, Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Abiy Ahmed, is the winner of last year's Peace Prize, Laureate Peace Prize there. So quite interesting. And then we go to Libya, where the Libyan parliament has approved the government of national unity presented by the new interim Prime Minister Abdul Hamid Mohamed Deiba. The vote took place at a rare session of the parliament in the city of Sirte. Now, the unity government is a latest stage in a UN-backed plan that is aimed at trying to solve a decade of violence and instability in Libya, with an election due to be held in December. Mr. Deiba thanked MPs in parliament, itself riven with division, for putting the country ahead of their personal interest. And a lot of these people who voted for him, reports indicate that, of course, they were bribed. They were given a hefty bribes, not just bribe, even up to the tune of $500,000 US, a lot of money. All right, and then we head over to West Africa and we land in Nigeria. A national security advisor National Security Advisor Babagana Monguna says the regime of President Muhammadu Buhari is not interested in negotiation with bandits, terrorists, and other criminal elements terrorizing the country. According to NSA, dialogue with insurgents paints the government as weak and incapable, adding that Buhari regime won't hesitate to use maximum force on the insurgents. Monguna spoke on Thursday at a State House briefing in Aso village, Abuja. It's quite interesting. I mean, that is what the rest of the world is thinking. Even your former president, Olusegun Obasanjo, he's been criticizing President Muhammadu Buhari in his handling of the security in that country, and his feeling is that since President Buhari came to power, the security situation in Nigeria has deteriorated, even referring to Nigeria as, becoming a banana republic due to the runaway insecurity. So you just realized people think Buhari's approach to the insecurity is weak. That is what the rest of the world is thinking, because what has Buhari been doing to address effectively the runaway insecurity in Nigeria? Not very much. Talk about the bandits, talk about Al-Shabaab, what do you call them, Boko Haram and other groups there. So it's too late, but maybe you can do something about it now that you've realized that. Okay, and so we go to Cameroon, and today, on the 9th of March, the United Kingdom signed an economic partnership agreement with Cameroon. The trade deal, which will support jobs and build future prosperity, was signed by International Trade Minister Ranil Jayawardena and High Commissioner of Cameroon to the UK, His Excellency Albert Fotabong. The deal provides a certainty for British and Cameroonian businesses, ensuring they can continue to trade as freely as they do now without any additional barriers or tariffs. The UK-Cameroon trade was worth around £200 million in 2019, and this deal lays a foundation to extend our trading partnership in the future. The UK markets accounts for 12% of total exports of bananas from Cameroon, and this agreement will maintain tariff-free market access to the UK. It also guarantees continued market access for UK exporters who sold £50 million in goods to Cameroon in 2019. The reason why I thought this story would be appropriate, I know I still have a couple of others to go, is because in light of what is happening in Cameroon, especially the crisis between the government of Paul Biya and the Anglophone region there, they call themselves Ambazonian, there's a lot of human rights abuse that is going on in Cameroon, specifically in the Anglophone region. Remember, Cameroon had two colonizers. One part was the British, the other one is Francophone. The French colonized the other part, and that is the larger part of Cameroon. So there has been an increased human rights abuse in the Anglophone part. Remember, in 2017, President Paul Biya said now there's the side that is the Anglophone. The schools there should start teaching in French. The courts there should start running their affairs in French. And they said, wait, no, we use English this side. So our children don't know French. Our teachers don't even understand French. Our lawyers and judges don't know French, so we are good. We'll continue, using English. So that became a problem and started the protest. And that is a story that, dates way back in after independence there of Cameroon. So I don't want to get into the details of it. So it's long-sitting history of Anglophones feeling marginalized and ostracized and being treated as second-class citizens in their own country. So the reason why, I was really perplexed by this deal that UK signed with the government of Paul Biya is the ongoing escalation of violation of human rights in the Anglophone region in Cameroon, and the fact that this matter, I think, was lightly debated on a few years ago in a British House of Commons, the lower house, that is the Parliament, and no action has since been taken. These things have been highlighted. These things have found their way, atrocities have found their way into even the United Nations agenda there, and nothing much has been done. And Britain, being the former colonial master of the Anglophone part, you would imagine that they will be on the forefront of trying to speak out when atrocities are being committed, the way we've seen being committed there in Cameroon. And just a couple of weeks ago, there was some killings that happened in the Anglophone last year, and rape and a lot of other bad things that happened. And the Cameroon army came out to say that, indeed, our army did that. The government came out and said, claimed responsibility and said our army, the Cameroonian army, went ahead and did that. So in light with all of these things going on in Cameroon, and you see Britain coming in and signing these new business deals and improving the working relations there with the government of Paul Biya, while not so much of the same atrocities happening in a country like Zimbabwe, but we've seen how they've continued to intensify their sanctions. It goes ahead to speak on the hypocrisy of these Western powers sometimes, and how they choose to deal with some situations, applying some very unfair double standards. Because what is happening there in Cameroon, specifically in the Anglophone region, warrants no country to deal with the government of Paul Biya. And not to forget that Paul Biya, I think, is the second longest serving president in the continent. They had issues with Robert Mugabe for overstaying. Paul Biya has been there for 38 years, I think, as the president there in Cameroon. Obiang of Equatorial Guinea is the long serving, and then Paul Biya of Cameroon. But you see the way they treat him, you see the way they just give him warning shots like the US did last year, cut off a bit of some military help to Cameroon, like we saw France just speak on it, but not really taking action. If the things Paul Biya are doing were being done in Zimbabwe by President Paul Emmerson Mnangagwa, the reaction would have been so different. And so that's why I thought, this is interesting conversation. I think if you watch this show enough, we've been highlighting some of these issues. And so the double standard here, I think it's unacceptable. And nobody should be doing business right now with President Paul Biya, especially not the British, if the part that they colonized has continued to be marginalized, has continued to be systematically cut off from the rest of the Francophone region. I mean, British, this is a double standard. This is unacceptable. You should be calling for accountability there in Cameroon before you go there and strengthen your economic ties. And I understand your foreign policies always serves your interest. So if it's having a bigger interest for the people of Britain, I think you're good and you don't care. But it's interesting how you just pick and choose which country to punish, which country to put punitive measures on, which country to sanction and things like that. I think we should call out Britain for its hypocrisy on this one. Okay, all right, let's go to South Sudan. And at least 17 people have been reportedly killed in cattle-related clashes in Cobet County, Lake State. The fighting, which started on Monday, also resulted in the injury of 6 people. An unknown number of cattle have been stolen. That is according to officials there. The area police spokesperson, Captain Mabor Makwach, says the clashes between the two communities of Kongoro and Wat and Pakam, Lake State, has experienced endless waves of communal violence, mainly fueled by revenge attacks, cattle raiding, and land grabbing. According to the United Nations mission in South Sudan, revenge attacks and cattle-related killings remain the biggest insecurity challenges after political violence subsided in the country following the signing of the revitalized peace agreement. We head to Tanzania, where Tanzanian opposition politicians, yes, are raising serious questions about the health of President John Pombe Magufuli, the country's coronavirus skeptic president who has not been seen in public for more than a week. A 61-year-old Magufuli insisted for months that COVID-19 had been fended off by prayer, refusing measures such as masks and lockdowns, but last month conceded it was still circulating after Vice President of semi-autonomous Zanzibar was revealed to have died of coronavirus. All right, I'll just leave that there. And we go to Ivory Coast, where Ivory Coast Prime Minister Ahmed Bakayoko has died from cancer in Germany, the city of Freiburg, where he was receiving medical treatment. According to the government, his death on Wednesday came 2 days after his 56th birthday and some 8 months following the passing away of his predecessor. The government said in a statement on Friday that Ouattara had met Bakayoko during a visit to France last week, and given the condition of the minister's health, it was recommended that his hospitalization should be extended. On Monday, Ouattara had named his close confidant and chief of staff, Patrick Achi, as interim prime minister in place of Bakayoko. Tene Birahina Ouattara, a younger brother of the president, was named interim defense minister. A younger brother of President Alassane Ouattara was named as interim defense minister. Okay. And then we go to I think I've read the Ugandan news there. So that's it. That is the latest from across the continent. Of course, the killings there in South Sudan continue until the revitalized peace agreement. Some of the the agreement, a lot of the agreement there, if it's not really implemented, then we shall continue seeing these flared tensions and killings and conflicts there and communal fightings there in South Sudan. So something has to be done. And all right, very well. So anyway, our worrying story of the day, what is happening there in Ethiopia? I mean, Like I read there earlier, the U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken has said the people of Tigray in northern Ethiopia are being subjected to what he called ethnic cleansing. And we've been hearing of a lot of very interesting, or not rather interesting, but very worrying news coming from Ethiopia, the Tigray region there. The government started an onslaught on Tigray in November last year, and it has only gotten worse to the point that now a senior Ethiopian diplomat has resigned in protest over the alleged atrocities being committed in the ongoing conflict in northern Tigray region. So this person is the second in Deputy Ambassador of Ethiopia in Washington, and he resigned. He said, "I resign from my post in protest of the genocidal war in Tigray and in protest of all the repression and destruction the government is inflicting on the rest of Ethiopia," said Barhane Kidanemariam, the Deputy Chief of Mission at the Ethiopian Embassy in Washington. He criticized Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed for leading the country down a dark path toward destruction and disintegration, adding that the government was lying while the world bears witness. Now, thousands of people are reported to have been killed and hundreds of thousands have fled their homes. And Mr. Berhane said the involvement of Eritrean troops, Eritrea has been mentioned widely here, but of course, President Isaias Afwerki has come out and said, no way my country is involved there. But we've seen Eritrea being accused over and over in his contribution of the army, the forces that are part of the people terrorizing the Tigrayans there. And we know since the start of this onslaught, the government had refused access. No communication. Communication was cut off from the Tigray region. No media was allowed to access that area. We've seen journalists from foreign media houses going into Ethiopia trying to cover this story, being arrested over and over again. So even the information that we've been getting there has been very scanty. But from witnesses, from people who survived, women who survived, telling, I was just watching another news item there, quite horrifying, talking about their rape ordeals by these forces, allegedly from Eritrea and, of course, Ethiopian forces there. It's quite sad to know this is happening, and I don't know if IGAD has called Ethiopia into account there. Abiy Ahmed has refused to even cooperate, has refused to listen to the regional bodies, and so I think action needs to be taken against Abiy Ahmed, and the first action should be, the Nobel Peace Prize, the Nobel Peace Prize Committee. You need to get back that award that you gave Abiy Ahmed for peace, because he brokered peace between Ethiopia and his arch rival Eritrea. Those two, they're the same people, Eritrea and Ethiopia. They are the same, people. But there had been years of conflict between these two countries, along the borders and all that. So very acrimonious. So when Abiy Ahmed came, he made some efforts in trying to harmonize the relationship between Ethiopia and Eritrea, and then after that his own country boomeranged into what we now see happening. They are quite worrying. So the first action from the international community, go get that award that you gave to Abiy Ahmed for peace, because what we see happen in Ethiopia, I think, is bringing a lot of shame to that committee, to that award. It's disgraceful, and it is that he received an award, a Nobel Peace Prize for peace, and what is happening right now in Ethiopia, it is unacceptable, and the world needs to speak out, and we need more spotlight on what is happening there in Ethiopia. It has been a war of narratives, of course, as I said there earlier. Communications has been shut. Just until the other day, the government of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, agreed to allow even for humanitarian help to go to Tigray, but under very strict, security there. You are told where to go. You cannot access the whole region, and it's quite interesting. And now we see the deputy ambassador to the U.S. has said enough is enough. We cannot continue acting as if things are okay. We cannot continue, working with this picture that Abiy Ahmed is painting of everything is going on well in Ethiopia, because there's a massacre going on in Tigray. People are being killed, pulled from their homes. Women are being raped. Rape is being used as a weapon right there. And when you see the refugee camps, they've moved a lot of them to Sudan. Sudan itself is going through its own problems, trying to rebuild and just put its country in order, and now they have to deal with an influx of refugees. I think we have to start speaking for what is happening there in Tigray. The continued murdering of innocent people, the continued torture, the continued misplacement. And when you see the figures there by the United Nations, the people who have been misplaced from their homes, it's quite staggering. So why are we quiet? Why are we waiting for this to turn out to be another for it to reach heights where it cannot be helped? Why should we wait for more people to die, more people to leave their homes? We have to speak out, because what is happening in Ethiopia is quite unacceptable. And if one of the ambassadors, the deputy ambassadors to Washington, an Ethiopian himself serving under that government, is coming out and saying enough is enough. My government is killing its own people. My government is causing atrocity for its own people. And he resigned, because he's saying what is happening in Tigray is actually a genocide. So there has been a cover-up by Abiy Ahmed, and we've not been able to really get to know what is really happening there in Ethiopia. As you know, Ethiopia is a federal republic, democratic republic. I don't know about democracy in Ethiopia, but a democratic republic composed of about 9 national regional states there. And namely, we have Tigray, we have Afar, we have Amara, we have Oromia, Somali, Benishangul, southern nationalities and people region. We have Gambele and Harare, and 2 administrative states, that is Addis Ababa and Diredawa. And what is really saddening by this is the fact that our African Union headquarters is in Ethiopia. Is that why AU has been acting quite complacent with what is happening there in Tigray? Our headquarters is in the middle of atrocity there in Ethiopia, and AU has been very, very AU has been complacent with what is happening in Ethiopia. AU cannot speak out. AU has refused to come out strongly and condemn what is happening in Ethiopia. This is unacceptable. This is unacceptable. They should have protested, even having the 32nd. Remember, AU had the 32nd summit in February. Usually they have the annual meeting of the states there for the African Union. They should have protested then. That is the time they should have asked the questions, the heads of state. I know they were doing it online. Because of coronavirus, nobody could travel to Addis Ababa, but that is the time they should have taken. They should have, used that opportunity to try to bring Abiy Ahmed into account, hold him accountable for what is happening there in Ethiopia. So, in case you're wondering, the recent war that is happening in Ethiopia and what is really happening. James Bitoro, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your patronage. The Tigray War is the ongoing armed conflict that began around midnight of 3rd, 4th November in 2020 in the Tigray region of Ethiopia. It is between the Tigray regional government, led by Tigray's People's Liberation Front, and the Ethiopian National Defense Forces, aided by the Ethiopian Federal Police, Regional State Police, and Gendarmerie forces of neighboring Amara region and Afar region, with reported involvement of the Eritrean Defense Forces. President Isaias Afwerki of Eritrea. You cannot escape this, because you know your history of even sheltering Al-Shabaab dissidents when they commit atrocities in states. They run into Eritrea, and it has been said that they are provided with safe haven there. So your history and how you deal with peace and conflict in this region is quite questionable already. And there has been substantial evidence that indeed Ethiopian Eritrean army are the ones involved, together with other forces from the Ethiopia, are the ones who are involved with the genocide. This is a genocide going on in Tigray region there in Ethiopia. So as I said there, Eritrean forces have been mentioned, widely. Now, the federal forces captured the Tigrayan capital, Mekelle, on the 28th of November, after which Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed declared the Tigray operation over. Now, the PLF stated, the TPLF stated in late November that it would continue fighting until the invaders are out. Mass extrajudicial killings of civilians took place during November and December 2020, and in and around Adigrat and Hengere Selam in the Hitsats refugee camp, and in Humera, Mai Kadra, Debre Abi, and quite long names there. Now, peace and mediation proposals included an early November African Union mediation proposed by Debretsion and refused by Abiy. So African Union, whose headquarters is in Ethiopia, proposed, we need to come in and help you sort out this, and Abiy Ahmed refused. The Prime Minister there of Ethiopia refused, and so the AU trio of former African presidents who visited Ethiopia in late November, an emergency intergovernmental authority on development summit for East Africa heads of government and state that met in late 20th December 2020 in Djibouti, and peace proposals on 19th February by the TPLF on the 20th and on 20th February by the National Congress of Great Tigray. And all that has been rubbished. All the efforts by all these groups I'm reading here, Abiy Ahmed has rubbished all those efforts. And so now he's just been left with his soldiers there, together aided by Eritrean soldiers there. They continue to commit these atrocities against the people of Tigray. And I don't have the figures there, but I think I read from the official United Nations statistics, the number of people who have since died, who are not even accounted for. The number of people who have been forcefully displaced from their homes. These are crimes against humanity that somebody needs to go to the ICC or to the United Nations Security Council and say, look here, we do have somebody killing his people, like what we're hearing happening in Uganda next door. I was reading one of our papers here, I think covered that story, the Standard newspaper for today. I think they got that story from the BBC on page 44. Let me just check and make a quick reference before I end the show. Let me read for you what is happening there in Uganda. And Uganda's missing, hundreds of families fear for those taken away. Armed and ununiformed men made off with 18 young opposition supporters in January who haven't been seen yet. And that is just a very small fraction of the people who have been taken away. We've seen the stories on page 44. If you can go online and read what the Standard wrote. But I think they got the story from the BBC website who did that feature. So it is the same case with Ethiopia, where you have leaders and the army of a country that is supposed to be protecting the lives of the citizens in a country and the borders and the security of a country. They are the same people who are used to terrorize people, to kill, to maim, to rape. This is unacceptable. That is why South Sudan is the way it is. But with South Sudan is exception. The atrocities that happen there, we know the soldiers there in South Sudan, the way they operate as militia, and that is the same case that is happening actually there in Ethiopia. The same case that is happening in Uganda, where disciplined forces now are the ones who have become militants and are the ones who are committing these atrocious, heinous acts against the people they're supposed to be protecting. This is despicable. This is unacceptable. And we have to talk. We have to talk so that somebody can hear, so that somebody can take back, the Laurel Peace Prize that was given to Abiy Ahmed that, quite honestly, he does not deserve it at all. He does not deserve that. They should take it back. Not that it will make any difference to the people who are suffering there in Tigray. Not that it will bring back the lives of the people whose government Abiy Ahmed has murdered, but it will be, he should not have it. He should not have it, and then somebody needs to have him, this needs to be discussed at the United Nations Security Council. AU needs to get serious about what is happening in Tigray and address this issue in Tigray so that we avert more deaths, we avert more rapes, we avert more displacements, we avert more maimings of what has been happening there in Tigray. So that is just another sad story there from another African country. It's just depressing when you think about it. Now, in 1995, Constitution of Ethiopia states, Article 39, Sub-Article 1, states that every nation, nationality, and people in Ethiopia has an unconditional right to self-determination, including the right to secession. And we've seen Tigray has been wanting to secede. I think the Amara region also have been wanting to secede. I've told you now, Ethiopia has 9 regions, and they're divided into their ethnical backgrounds and stuff. So we do have the Amara region, the Tigray region, Somali region, Harari, and Gambela. And we do have the, Benishangul, Gumuz there. So they've been wanting to secede for whatever reason there, so it's quite interesting. Now, following the end of the civil war, in 1991, Ethiopia became a dominant party state under the rule of Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front, a coalition of ethnically based parties. You see, ethnicity is quite a dangerous thing if it's used not for good. And the founding and most influential member of who was the TPLF, and the chairperson was Meles Zenawi, who was the Prime Minister of Ethiopia until his death in 2012. And now on May 2nd, April 2018, the once powerful TPLF was ousted from power in the federal government owing to a growing discontent within the public, a reaction to 27 years of repression in a closed-door election. In the chair of EPRDF, executive committee members from the Amara, Oromo, and Southern nationalities people's regions voted for Abiy Ahmed in defiance to TPLF. All right? See, when people feel they have been marginalized, like the way Amazonians feel marginalized down there in Cameroon, or the way the people of, from Biafra in Nigeria, they feel marginalized, and they get to a point where they really cannot take it. This is what you force people to do. All right? So now, after losing the election and being ousted from the federal government, TPLF officials relocated to Tigray and continued administering the region for 3 years, frequently clashing with the federal government. In one instance, the regional administration of Tigray is reported to have defied the federal government and refused to allow Ethiopian Federal Police to arrest Getachew Assefa, remember, the former chief of the National Intelligence and Security Services of Ethiopia and the executive member of TPLF. We saw that how that panned out in November. And on 1st of December 2019, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed merged the ethnic and region-based parties of Ethiopia's People's Revolutionary Democratic Front, which had governed Ethiopia for 37 years. So he said, we don't need all these small fractions of parties. Let's just have this wonderful big umbrella of a party and bring everybody on board. And so this new party was called the New Prosperity Party. I don't know how that has worked out there. This New Prosperity Party has brought nothing but pain to the people of Ethiopia, and it's called Prosperity Party. Quite interesting. Now, the TPLF, a politically powerful entity that had dominated Ethiopia politics during those 27 years, refused to join the new party. So the ones now who were in Tigray and alleged that Abiy Ahmed became an illegitimate ruler by rescheduling the general election set for 29th August last year. Remember, the elections were pushed forward because of a coronavirus, which Abiy postponed twice before the regular May 2020 election date before COVID-19 to an undetermined date in 2021. So the elections were supposed to take place last year. They did not take place. But one of the states there, I think, went ahead and did its own, defied what the national government there had decided to do. That was to postpone. So one of these regions decided to go ahead and hold its own elections there. So there's a lot of things happening there in Ethiopia. So we shall continue following this story, and we shall continue talking, and we shall continue speaking about the genocide that is going on there in Ethiopia, because it is unacceptable, and Eritrea needs to be called out. Eritrea is a troublemaker in this region. Eritrea has been, part of the instability of the peace in this region, because Isaias Afwerki, even when you hear the history of how many times do you even hear news coming from Eritrea? When you see the young people who perish in the Mediterranean, trying to flee from Africa, trying to get into Europe. When you hear any of them, if they're not from West Africa, if they're coming from East Africa, you can't find a Kenyan there. A lot of them are from Eritrea, because Isaias Afwerki has stifled the freedoms there in Ethiopia. And when you even take a flight not to Ethiopia, but to Eritrea, when you take an Eritrean flight, a lot of the people on board are older people, because they even refuse to give visas for young Eritreans, because they know if they leave the country, they're not coming back. So you really, as a young person in Eritrea, you really need a good reason for you to even leave the country. And so Eritrea has been closed from even international media. Isaias Afwerki is no joke. And just the other, was it in 2019, I was doing the same show, and there were news that it had even closed down all the Catholic clinics and hospitals, and I think, was it schools? I think clinics and all that. And so he just wakes up and makes very interesting decisions there in Eritrea. So he's not very good in diplomacy. I don't know his foreign policy, how that works out for him, Isaias Afwerki. So yes, I'm not surprised that some of his forces are alleged to be helping out the forces of Abiy Ahmed to go and commit these atrocities in Tigray. And what is quite interesting, before I leave, you remember Abiy Ahmed has that Nobel Peace Prize because he was able to broker peace between Ethiopia and Tigray, and the border that separates those two countries that had been closed was able to resume normalcy. They were able to open up. Guess what? A couple of months later, Isaias Afwerki closed his side of the border. So really, Abiy Ahmed needs to return that Nobel Peace Prize. Sir, you achieved nothing, and if your country don't know peace, if you're sending people to murder your own citizens, I think it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. All right. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Miriam Ogutu. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye bye for now.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.